government list known to man with as angry as I would get. And it's like not worth it.
No, dude, it is not worth it. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this party started. And you know what? I've got enough fun shit to talk about that I'm hoping that I make your day better, buddy. So that's what we're gonna try to do today.
Well, hopefully you're successful with that, because that'll be give me something positive to go into work with tomorrow.
There we go, man. All right, we're starting right now. Man, there are rare moments in your life where things just come together and you're like, is this really happening? And for me, I got another awesome interview just for me as a mark because I grew up, and I know this makes you feel weird because it makes me feel weird sometimes when people are like, man, I grew up, not even really grew up. It was teenage years, formative years with Jim Fannin because I grew up watching some good ass IWA Mid South. And I mean, you did commentary. A lot of people forget. They think that you just like managed, that you were an authority figure. No, you commentated. Like, I vividly remember a lot of shows that you commentated, and it feels like you were kind of off and on there. And that'll kind of start us off here. Other than managing, I feel like that's your favorite thing you did. What was your other favorite thing? Commentary or ring
Um,
announcing?
I mean, I guess it just depends on how you want to look at it. Tracy Smothers always knew me as the ring announcer because that was like his first experiences with me was when I was ring announcing. So I've told the story on the podcast a few times now where every time he'd see me, he'd have to tell everybody how I was the toughest damn ring announcer in the business. And I was like, Tracy, I've managed you. And
Right?
maybe he thought there was tougher managers out there. Maybe he thought there was tougher commentators out there. So my niche was maybe being the toughest damn ring announcer in the business to him. So I had fun doing that. I did some things that people weren't really doing at the time where for a while as a baby face, I would just attack the heel when I would do the introduction and like mess with them. And because I was also the boss, so it was like
Right.
I knew I didn't have to worry story, in storyline purposes. I knew I didn't have to worry about them like trying to attack me or anything because, oh, you're fired. Sorry.
Right.
Don't know what to tell you. You just got to sit there and take it. And then when I would do it as a heel, then I would turn the tides, and then it'd be the baby faces that would get the wrath. And there was times where on shows I'd be doing all three,
Yeah.
and it was a tough act to try and balance because you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, and especially in the Clarksville building when
Yeah.
we'd have to do it in commentary, you had to climb up that ladder and get up on top
Oh
of
my
the
God, that looked
little
miserable, man.
like inside shed thing. So I'd have to crawl down the ladder, go into the ring announce, and then get back and climb up the ladder. And ladies and gentlemen, I am not the most nimble human being out there. So there's a lot of matches that I was doing commentary on where there's a lot of dead air at the beginning as you're waiting for me to be able to get back up and get ready on commentary.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to stop commentating to do the 5 minutes are gone, 10 minutes are gone, so the guys could hit their cue and know, how much longer they had to go in the match and everything. And it was tough to balance, but I think if I had my preference as to what I'd have been doing, manage, then commentary, then ring announcing,
Yeah.
depending on who I was doing commentary with. And
Right. you and Dave Prazak had really good chemistry together. And like the only thing with IWA commentary is you learned very quickly to not get attached to your team because man, you had everybody doing commentary, but that kind of speaks to that DIY. You know, people want to say like whatever shindy or whatever. I always say this. I think IWA Mid South was kind of like the last American territory in a lot of ways because you guys, you ran the horn, you had your towns that you did, and it was really more of like the era, right? Like the early 2000s, late 90s. I watched your interview you did with your buddy Ben from college, where like you talk about how it was very much a tight knit sort of thing, and getting in there was hard to do, and you know I think that's what really makes those of you that did IWA Mid South different because you really had to do it all.
Well, and say what you want about Ian Rotten, and there's a million things that you could say to criticize the man, and there's a million things that he did wrong. But one of the things that he did right, if you ask me, was he gave us creative freedom. And
Yeah.
we could go out there, and I mean, me and Jimmy Jacobs just talked about it on the episode from this week. You might be told you're going over, and then the rest is up to you. No time, no time constraints, it's whatever, the it's your canvas, go out there and create what you want, and that would come into play with commentary too. Everybody like, hey, go up there and see what you get. We're trying to make everybody better, and maybe if you practice on commentary, it might help you with your promos. It might make you where you're a hotter commodity to everybody else and improve your talents. So, it was just something that everybody wanted a chance to get on there and do commentary, especially,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody on the show wanted to be up in the Eagle's nest for Samoa Joe, Necro Butcher, and everybody's like trying to grab it and just run over. And I've got 2 sentences I need to add. Like, did you just see what just happened? And
That was awesome.
so everybody would try to jump onto commentary, and yeah, you'd never know who you were going to be out there with. Never know if there's going to be 4, 5, 6 people trying to share 2 microphones, and it created a lot of challenges, but it helped you think on your feet and ad lib, try to make sure that what you're doing is something that's going to interest the people. And I think everybody got better because of it. Maybe the show suffered at times because of it, especially if somebody wasn't clicking, or 2 people are trying to do play-by-play and no one's doing. Yeah. People don't realize exactly how hard it is to be just put out there. And, at least I've never been there, so I can't say for certain, but I know I've heard a million stories of, Shivani and everybody talking about, if you were in WWF, Vince is in your ear telling you what to say. And so you don't have to do that. You're just, okay, you're spitting out whatever they're telling you in your ear. We didn't have that. There wasn't anybody, monitoring the situation and feeding stuff. So you're out there and you're trying to, okay, what do we got to say? And you're trying to remember all the storylines, remember all the move names, try not to, what do we not talk over? What do we need to just let the crowd soak in the response of what the live crowd is doing?
Yeah.
People what's really annoyed me when I've been trying to put my YouTube channel together with showing different clips and stuff, commentary talking over the promos.
Oh.
And then you can't, you're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, what was I saying here? And they're talking over it, and I have no idea. And yeah, I think I told Mickey about that when I was trying to go back and It's like, I don't remember what the poem was that I wrote her 20 years ago.
Right.
I remembered bits and pieces of it, like the Tracy Smothers line that I fit in there, and different things. I knew that part of it.
Yeah.
But as I'm sitting there watching it back, and BJ and Prazak are talking over the whole thing, and I'm like, I have no idea. The sound system was really bad. IWA did not have a great sound system, so your echoes are bad. You're like, well, Mickey, it was something like this, and we'll just put up with it. And so,
Exactly.
so yeah, I think commentary is probably the second favorite, just because it's a little bit more involved in the show than just being the ring announcer. But
Yeah, well, and it fits your thing, the fan and family, and of course, it's very clearly very heavily influenced by Bobby Heenan, and we know that he went from being a manager to a great color guy, and I think that's what you're talking about, just being able to think on your feet. It makes you better at both. It really does, and hey, I put you over to begin with. Like I remember you vividly, and that's why. Because the other thing that I noticed when I would go through your stuff is you committed to it. Whatever the angle was, whatever the point was, like of course you've talked about it ad nauseum, the sports bra thing, where you get in the ring and you're like, all right, let's go. You got the sports bra on. It's like it's being able to show your ass, something a lot of heels now really miss. And you really like latched onto that, and it goes into what you said on your first episode of your podcast about I didn't train, I wasn't in this to be a wrestler, I just wanted to be in the business as much as I could, but you wouldn't know it because you really did have that timing, and the commitment of it was really, I think, what put you over the top right away.
thanks. It was something that I definitely wanted to pay attention to. Um, Growing up, being a fan, I loved Jim Cornette, loved Bobby Heenan, loved Mr. Fuji. In high school, I threw salt in my friend's eye when we were horseplaying during lunch, and the person I threw it at ducked because he watched wrestling too. So he knew to duck, and the other friend standing behind him didn't watch wrestling, so he's just standing there, and he took the full brunt of all the salt into his eye. His eye swelled shut, and he was on the baseball team, and all of us were scrubs. Whatever sport we played, we got it. We were on the bench, and then we would get in at the end. And it was towards the end of the season, and the coach was like, I'm going to let you pitch tonight, Nate. And so he was supposed to that was going to be his big chance to actually get the play. He was going to pitch. It was a dream, and his eyes swelled shut, and he couldn't do it. And I just felt so horrible, but I kept going, damn it, everybody knew to duck. You duck. Why would you just stand there and watch the salt come for you? He's like, why did you throw it?
Dude, WrestleMania 9. Come on, man. Yeah, that's wild. I've actually had that happen to me too, inadvertently, and I realized real quick, like your friend, that it is a shoot. That shit sucks in your eye, man. It's insane. Yeah, it's really crazy to think about you in IWA starting in like, well, you always say that like you consider your start as a professional April Blood Showers of 98, or at least you had said it on a podcast. And that's crazy to think about, that you were around from 98 to, I believe it was 09 was when you finally bowed out. And obviously it wasn't long. 2010, I think, is the first time Ian sort of was like, I'm down. We all know how that went, where he just kind of kept kicking back up. But a lot of people forget that IWA started that long ago. People just assume it was this early 2000s thing, and that is just not true. You guys were, doing shows there for a little while, and that was one of the things that I really did sort of want to ask is, like, when did you realize that, like, you guys were kind of getting traction, online and kind of outside of that regional area? Because that had to be weird.
It's hard to give that an answer. I mean, he started running shows in 1996, ran like a couple, didn't draw very well, had to contend with some bad weather, which, if you're from the South, you realize any kind of bad weather just shuts the place down.
Absolutely.
When I was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago. I'm used to snow, get snow all the time. We go to do our show at my high school in Morris, and it literally snowed 12 inches in March, the day, like the night before the show, into the show. Used to having to deal with that where I come from. But then I get down into Kentucky, going to the University of Kentucky, and then moving to Louisville after I got involved with wrestling. If snow was in the forecast for the next day, school canceled.
Forget it. Yep.
All it takes is to be in the forecast. Doesn't have to fall.
Yeah.
It's school's canceled. We can't risk it.
It's
In my 12 years of going to school, grade school, high school, junior high in the Chicago area, we got let out of school one time during the day because it had snowed 8 inches while we were at school. And they were like, okay, we got to get you out of here. And they let us go home at noon. And it took me 40 minutes to clean my car off in the high school parking lot.
Damn.
Because there was so much snow that had gotten on it by the way it was blowing around and everything.
Yeah.
And I think we might have had 1 or 2 snow days where they like canceled it before we got there, but it was very minimal. And then you get down there and just any kind of snow canceled. And it was like those first couple of shows that he tried to run in 96 got hit with snow, really hurt the attendance. Then he started running weekly starting in October of 1996. My buddies, we ended up finding out about it just randomly going through a wrestling board on AOL Grandstand. Internet was just starting. It was in its infancy. I had my dad passed away when I was 19. I was a sophomore in college. I had to drop out so I could go home and like plan the funeral, because my mom had died when I was in high school. So it was on me to be like the executor of everything and to get all the stuff in order and deal with everything. And I had to drop out. Online classes weren't even a thing, and this was February of 1996. Online classes were not an option. There was nothing I could do. I had gotten past the midterms, but I couldn't. Morris was 8.5 hour drive from Lexington. I couldn't be going back and forth. My only option was to drop out for that term, and then I had to go back in the fall and like take the stuff over and pretty much start from scratch at that point. And people just take things for granted. If you grew up, all these youngins, growing up with the computers all their life, and internet was in its infancy. So you really you had no idea how much it was taking off or anything. And we found out about the shows. We started going to the shows, and then we brought some shows to Lexington, and that territory kind of thing started.
Yeah.
That you were talking about, and I mean, I really didn't start noticing that it was really catching on until Smart Mark Video came around in like 2000, 2001, whatever the exact time was. And they were like, people are taking notice. We want to do your shows. And then once they started filming, I mean, people from all over the world were watching. My wife is amazed when she looks at the content information that comes back, the little analytics that we get from who's watching the podcast, and it's like 54% is from the United States. And then everybody else, Canada, Germany, Australia, just all over the place. And she's like, how you never were in any of those places? And I'm like, I know, but Smart Mark Video got the tapes there, and people were watching, and it just, especially then, it would just blow my mind thinking about how is that even possible. It's not as impressive today if you grow up, but they're at the beginning stages of it when it just caught fire, when Smart Mark was able to mass produce and get those videos out there.
Yeah.
So 2001, I guess, would be about the time that really noticed this is kind of cool. And we could just never get over that hump of being in Podunksville. Nothing against the towns we were at, but when the entire town could show up and you'd still only have
like 100 people,
maybe 500 people most in some of those towns. You trying to find a building that's got a place big enough to put a ring and actually be able to put people. I mean, I went to the GCW show in Chicago last night, and great venue.
Oh, yeah.
But you had to park on the street. Absolutely no parking at the venue itself. It's right smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood. And when I walked inside and saw the ring set up, they could only fit like 2-3 rows of chairs around the ring, and then the rest was up in the balcony area. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's so hard to find a building that's suitable to run wrestling and be able to get a lot of people into it. And for some reason, architects didn't think about, let's have a great wrestling show here.
No,
they it wasn't in their mind at that point. So to actually find a place that's affordable,
that's the other
but suitable, it's very difficult. So we were trapped doing little armories and little gymnasium community centers and in Olytic places like
Midlothian,
that you could, Rensselaer. I mean, places that you can't even spell, let alone find on a map.
Joliet. It's so funny because of what you're saying. I grew up in Arkansas, so I was on the other side of the redneck world, and I remember just kicking myself like, God, why did I have to be on this side of the white trash Mississippi, right? Like, I could have been over there. I'd at least have IWA, and the conversation. And the other thing too is your timing was not on purpose at all. Just like a lot of things with Ian, I feel like he really did sort of fall into a lot of stuff that other companies did too, but I think you guys were really on the cusp of, I think because you were so all over the place, and your shows were good ass shows. That's one of those things that when I go back and watch the 2000s indie stuff, there's not a lot of full shows that really stand the test of time. Your guys' stuff did, because you knew how to sort of mix it up. You had a crazy death match or something, you'd have something silly at the end of that. And that's one thing Ian and whoever was in the, the session, so to speak, the whole thing always with Ian was the 420 booking. So, he was great about that. And I've gone back and I've watched a lot of that shit, and it's incredible stuff. And it also coincided with the rise of MySpace. And that's where I really found out about you guys, because of the wrestlers. Their live journal in MySpace was like how I knew about anything going on outside of WWE at the time. And like Ring of Honor, obviously, which we know your feelings on them. But, I always, that's sort of, the older I get, the more that I go, I really was more of an IWA guy. I loved it because you guys had the perfect mix. You'd get those ROH guys, and you're not wrong when you say, and then they Ring of Honor come poach them. It's just fact. But you really did get mileage out of every single piece of what wrestling is, which, in my opinion, is a variety show at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we knew that we were competing. Like being in Kentucky, you get crushed in March because basketball is king. In
Yep.
everybody in that area, you're either a Louisville Cardinal fan or a Kentucky Wildcat fan, and life would shut down in March as you waited to see are one of them going to win the title,
Yep.
and you couldn't compete against that. And and then you got football, and there's just a million things that people can entertain themselves with. So you have to give them something that they can't sit at home. How many different nights now have free wrestling on TV? If you,
Every one
I
of
mean,
them.
almost every damn night of the week there's
Yeah.
some wrestling shows on, and how are you going to compete against that? You got to give them a little bit of everything. And at first it was okay. What we can give that nobody else is doing is the hardcore and the blood and guts and the violence.
Yeah.
But then, athletic commissions start shutting down the shows. Buildings don't want things potentially broken. They don't want the liability of, my God, somebody could die doing this, and not in my building. I want people to come here.
Yeah.
So you'd have all these issues. So then it got to the point also where online you'd have the people that would just crap all over the hardcore stuff. Oh, that's garbage. And anybody can go out there and do, well, not any, technically, yes, anybody could do it.
Yeah.
But they're not going to, because you got to have a certain amount of crazy in you in order to take
Yes.
to take any of that stuff. And so I would chuckle when they'd do the, oh, well, anybody can do that. Well, anybody can punch and kick too.
Yeah, it's such a weird, straw man argument. It's like, what is that even?
Yeah.
Mean?
So it got to where, okay, well, this small percentage want to see, the high flyers, and then this percentage over here wants to see comedy, and then over here these folks want to be able to see the Japanese strong style, and then over here you got the people that want to see the light tubes and the thumbtacks and the barbed wire, and then over here you got the folks that want to see the sweet science technical aspect of the wrestling that they grew up watching, when they were kids or whatever. And so he finally found like some different people in the area that could provide those different qualities to the show, and decided that the best bet for us going forward was have a little bit of everything. And then at least every kind of fan, every genre of fan is going to end up with something on the show that they're going to like. And then you hope that while they're there enjoying what they came to see, they might grow an appreciation for what they're seeing of one or two of the other styles, and you give them enough to actually get them to buy into the product and follow it and want to support it. But then, you got to worry about the tape traders and everybody else at that point that, rumor has would do the tape trading, and, you sell one DVD or one VHS, and then a guy's ripping off 400 copies of it and selling it for $5 or trading it for something else. And it gets hard when that's what you're trying to rely on to stay in business. But I can get, when you're a place like we were, and we're running 3-4 shows a week, I mean, how are you expecting a fan to be able to buy
Yeah.
at face value? You know, if we're selling the VHS tapes for $15 and we're putting out, say, $50 or $45 a week in VHS tapes, how are they going to keep up with all that? So
Yeah.
it's one of those dual-edged swords, and it was stuff that people didn't really think about, because look at all the Georgia Championship Wrestling footage that's lost to time, because
Yeah.
Ole Anderson would reuse the same tape over and over and over again, because he didn't, back then they didn't see the value of, we got to keep this footage and it might be valuable one day. It was, these tapes are expensive, so
Yeah.
we've already aired last week's episode, tape over it and do this week's, and you know, and on it goes, and all that footage is lost. And so a lot of IWA footage, especially from the beginning, I mean, we weren't retaping over stuff, we just weren't taping it at all.
Yeah.
Or if we were taping it, you know, you'd set a camera somewhere and hit record and come back to it later. It might have ran out in the middle of a match, and you might have missed 3 matches before somebody noticed that the tape was out and switched it over. And there's just so many things that were never caught. There was an outdoor show in Southern Indiana. The place was called like Third Base Bar.
Yeah.
And it had 3 decks, 3 different levels outside.
That's cool.
And we had the ring back there, and we weren't recording. And I swear to God, Cash Flow goes up to the 3rd deck of this place and gets up onto the railing and comes off the 3rd deck of this bar into the ring with the Alabama Jam leg drop.
Oh my God.
And it was like one of the most amazing things that I saw. And Ian almost had a damn coronary. He was like, my God, tell me you're going to do something like that so we can tape it and be able to sell it. What are you doing that when, you know, there's nothing? And Cash was like, I just assumed you were taping. And like, no. So the 40 people that were there are the ones that got to see it and know that it happened. And it's like, how many things like that are out there, not just from us, but from
everywhere,
but from companies all through time, you know, up until that early 2000s, when everything was started to get recorded and documented. And it's sad it's a shame to look back at it and know how much great footage there could be.
And also just you guys were too ahead of the curve on the whole like streaming rights and being savvy to that whole thing too, because, you know, even, you know, had that stuff sort of come about in the late 2000s, where I would say your guys' peak was, which would be probably, you know, that early, but really I would say mid 2000s, at least for me as a fan, I feel like was like your guys' peak. Like 2004 to like 2007 was really, at least quality of shows wise. I mean, obviously we've talked about the drawing was kind of all over the place, but you guys, I remember you having decent houses there, you know, what, like probably 2005 was really when I was watching heavy.
Yeah, I think Highland was the Renaissance, I think, of it, if you want to look at it like that. The Highland was that was the place that drew, and we'd have about 300 people there every month.
That's crazy.
I kind of look at it, for me, the golden age or golden era for it would have been, I'd say, 2003 to 2005. Those 3 years were probably the most consistent, best full variety of styles shows that we put on.
Yeah.
And I think though pretty much any show during that era that you'd watch, you're gonna find stuff that you like.
Yeah, for sure.
And in some shows, you're just going to absolutely love the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hell of a run for us. And there would be people that would buy every single show. There'd be people that bought a ticket to go to the show, and then buy the VHS. And some of them would then also even buy the DVD, even if they had bought the VHS. And
Why
and I
not?
mean, we had some dedicated, loyal fans, and we would not have survived without them. And they got to see a lot of great stuff, though, and they got to see a lot of great talent before they ended up exploding and main eventing WrestleManias and
Yeah.
making an awful lot of money in this business.
They're becoming, I mean, icons. You know, you think about who went through, is like everybody from that era went through. I mean, I can't think of anyone that didn't at least do like a shot for you guys that was anyone or anything. I mean, yeah, I can't think of anyone that would have been around and would have been, you know, obviously anyone that would have been in Ian's purview. Yeah, I mean, all of them. I guess maybe, well, no, I feel like, yeah, there's the famous story that Steen and Generico worked with you guys because, of course, the airport thing that you've talked about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, surely the West Coast guys came by. I know infamously you weren't a fan of the Chikara, uh, the Chikara in and out that started to happen there.
Some of them I was, Claudio,
Eddie,
Kingston,
mm-hmm,
those guys were
true,
fine. Just I mean, I get it. Put gear your shows towards kids, and the kids are gonna have to bring their parents. That's great.
mm-hmm.
I don't want to watch it.
Right,
It's not for me,
yeah,
but I get why you would do that, and more power to them for having done it. And some of those folks have gone on to great success
right,
in making money in the business. So, I mean, there's obviously a market for it. It's just I'm not that market, and
exactly.
and Nick Manoa has to tell me that all the time. He's like, they're not doing it for you. And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean I can't not like it and complain about it.
Right?
Um, but yeah, they're not trying to get me to like it. They're
No,
trying to get other people to. And great.
yeah,
But yeah, the West Coast guys came through too, because we had Super Dragon, and
that's what I
we
thought.
had we had B Boy and Joey Ryan, even though that's not a popular name to mention now.
I
But
was gonna say you were ahead of the
at,
curve, not
at the
liking
time,
Quack too.
um, at the time, he was a name. There was several people that like came out. I guess say the Young Bucks didn't come through. I don't
No,
think the Young Bucks ever did a show. They definitely didn't do anything while I was still there. Um,
that is
but
interesting.
for the most part, you see almost everybody came through at least once.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think
and
because, you know, like I said, you guys were really sort of angled as the cool place to. It's weird because it's like it was the cool place to be, but then you'd have the people that would just sort of be transient. So you know what it was? You guys had that PWG pool before it was a thing, in the sense that everyone knew that if you go to IWA, you're going to get seen. And so it really sort of had a mystique to it. And especially in that window you're talking about, where it's like, well, Smart Mark is a thing. And especially at that point, they were really well established. And, you know, obviously the CZW stuff. And they really sort of, they were really committed. Like, you know, it wasn't such a sporadic thing. They were doing it regularly, and you guys were delivering good shows regularly, and you had the real boom of the forums. You know, I really remember that being a big thing, is you guys really were sort of considered, for the people that weren't the troll douche, you know, CZW fans people, which I was on there as well. But like, you know, like the DVDVRs and those people were way more into like the, hey, but this is good shit. Like, we can giggle about the venue and ha ha ha, Clarksville, whatever, right? Like, whatever the meme at the moment was. But that was the difference. And so that's a lot of why you did have everybody. And obviously, when you guys kind of waned and that sort of stopped being the zenith period, that's really when I would think PWG started becoming what people remember them as. So it's an interesting sort of ebb and flow there.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to speak for Super Dragon, but he was on a lot of those IWA shows in '04.
Yeah.
And so maybe he took some of the stuff that he saw while he was doing the IWA shows and put it towards what he was doing out there. But like you said, everybody wanted to be on the show because they knew that Smart Mark would get them around the world.
Yep.
And look at how many of the guys ended up getting to go to Japan, how many ended up getting to go work for what's the German group that just did their big shows, WXW.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many of the guys got to go do that? How many people got to go over and do shows in England, Australia? It's amazing to me to see the places that they're able to go because of what Smart Mark provided with letting them be seen and to build that name. So everybody wanted to be on those shows. And you know, I would look at, I'm a baseball guy, huge baseball fan. So, you know, we were strongly at least like AA baseball, where you're going to get your seasoning and work out the details and get your skills built up to where you're ready for the major leagues. And you know, Ring of Honor was probably, I guess, that would have been AAA, but
I would say so.
You know, you'd have to get through us. Well, you wouldn't have to, but you know, we would help season you and get you ready for that next level, and then they would get you ready to then jump up into one of the national, you know, territory organizations that were running. And unfortunately, we were part of the era that saw the demise of everything, and then there was just one national company for the longest time, and it really cut back that kind of organization thing, because then they just started making their own developmental area and would sign everybody that they thought might potentially one day be something. And it was great for the guys. It got a lot more guys weekly pay that they could maybe live on and dedicate more time to fine-tuning the craft. But when you don't have as many options to go work, because nothing, you can practice in the performance center all you want, but if you're not out there actually doing it in front of a paid crowd and doing it multiple times a week, you're not going to get the skills that it takes unless you're just born super gifted.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a very, very short amount of those people out there. You know, everybody else has to do a hell of a lot of matches. And if you're in a place like IWA provided, where you got to do all those different styles, that would help you and get you ready.
You
and
look at that. All those guys. You mentioned it. Your last guest, Jimmy Jacobs, is a prime example of that. He became a very big star for Ring of Honor, and he's always put over that would not have been as comfortable and as successful without Ian. And what he learned in IWA, I think it's obvious. I mean, you talk about like mega talented people. Obviously, Chris Hero is the number one that comes to mind of IWA alums. Obviously Punk then is not short after, and all those guys. They did all the different match types, different styles, all that stuff in IWA, and you can just see a difference. Those guys succeeded elsewhere where others didn't, and that's really the only thing you can sort of point at. It's like, well, maybe style or whatever, work ethic or body. It's like, really, it's just they had the reps. They had the reps that a lot of the others did not have, and with that, the confidence. I think that's the one thing that I get out of all the IWA Mid South guys. And a guy that I saw live is somebody that people forget about, but he got his first break in IWA Mid South is Chuck Taylor. And you see what he became and how he pivoted and navigated the world. And another rare guy that was super, super deep IWA Mid South roots and Chikara, right? And he like coexisted in that world. And another guy, obviously he got viral with the screaming at the kid thing at an IWA show, I do believe. I think it was actually 2006 or something, 2005. It's interesting to see what a difference those reps make, and whether it's in front of 10 people or not. Like you said, a performance center is only going to be so much, or God forbid you're just doing shit in front of a camera. It's like you need that feedback.
Yeah, it's like you can run on a treadmill all you want, but then you get into the ring and there's the bounce and the give. You're gonna blow up in 30 seconds if you're not used to that. It's completely different, and I know one of the big things on the internet now is all the football players yelling at the wrestlers that they're not athletes, and then the wrestlers going, well, anybody can, any of us can go out there and play football. Well, no, not really, but the football players can't come in and do what we're doing in the ring either.
God, no.
It's different skill sets, it's different things. And like when I was in high school, I was on the high school wrestling team. I played football, and like football, you've got, okay, you're gonna use all your energy for 10 seconds, and then you got 30 seconds before you got to go out there and do it again.
Yeah.
And it's you do that in front of a wrestling crowd, and they're going to be yelling boring and booing you out of it, unless you have some other skills to fill in that downtime. And if you're out there and you're yelling at the crowd, and you'd be surprised as to how much wind that takes out of you. And so some of those
Yeah.
I used to sit in the front row and I'd laugh because the wrestler would be 8 shades of purple, and you'd be like, he's about to die. What is wrong with him? And then you do it for a couple of minutes and you're like, oh my God, now I know why that guy I was making fun of was so purple. Because you're out here and you forget, sometimes you just forget to breathe, and that's really a lot of the reason why most guys have chew the gum, is it gives them something to focus on, to remember that breathing process, and it's just little things like that. And you're like, it's such a hard thing to really focus on and get your stuff it's just so hard to even just put into words the difficulties that go into everything that it takes to be good inside the ring. And we tried to provide people with a place that they could build those skills and use them. Thankfully, a lot of the guys did. Um, but yeah, I just shake my head when I see all the stuff going back and forth with Brady and what was the guy that
Oh God,
a running
Logan
back or
fucking
something.
Paul, and then I can't remember. Yeah, who the other guy
There
was.
was like a new football player jumped in the other day. Oh, Le'Veon Bell. I think that was the one I saw
Oh
where
God, get the hell out of here.
joining in on it, and it was
Yeah,
it's
they
like
don't care,
a
man.
it's like a wrestler's not going to be able to play NFL. Look at Brock Lesnar, didn't make the Vikings, but
Sucked.
you know the how many football players have tried to become professional wrestlers and failed. Some of them
Tons.
have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have done it, but there's a lot that have failed. And you can't just make a blanket statement of that everybody that does that is this.
Right.
It,
No.
it's not not accurate.
This is gonna be completely out of nowhere, but my thing is I love really just people would call it intimate venues, right? I just cut to the chase. Shit venues, right? Just fucking a shed in someone's backyard, right? IWA Mid South has some beautiful venues. Which one either did you hate maybe getting to the most? And just what was the shittiest place you guys ran? Because I cannot imagine.
See, that is
I know that's tough.
it's so tough. There was a lot of those Indiana towns were so far off the beaten path that I mean, I think I told Trippin' Balls that Olytic was probably my least favorite because it was just so far out into the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely out into the middle of nowhere. You're not by anything. You're not by anything. People do not realize what kind of world it's almost like you couldn't even say, oh, they're stuck in the 20th. They're stuck in like the 18th century in
Yep.
some of these places. um it's so redneck and so rural and so out there. And Olytic, it was a crummy building. It was uh it was a community center, but there's like 500 people in the town. And
Right.
you know almost the entire town was senior citizens when we would walk around the place. And the rare times that we would try to flyer, I think Nick Manawa said it best with Ian. He was a Field of Dreams kind of guy. Oh, if I just put the wrestling ring up,
Yeah.
they will come. No, they won't. They got to know that it's going on. And he wouldn't
Exactly.
advertise. He would just he thought that posting it on the wrestling internet board, hey, everybody's going to know about it now. Well, no, not that's not quite how it worked, especially back then.
Right. No.
But that, like, Olytic, it was just literally there was nothing there.
This reminds me of where I'm from, by the way. Like where I'm from would have been probably your shittiest venue. You'd have been like Gentry, Arkansas. What the fuck? We're back here.
But there was like the girl that I was dating at the time, like 2002, 2003.
This is the Ronald Reagan died chick.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
The her hometown. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was some small ass, southern Indiana town.
Yeah.
And where she lived, her town, they had one restaurant, and it was like a mom and pop, locally owned little restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
The hours were whatever they felt like being open. They had a mom and pop grocery store. Again, whatever hours they felt like being open. There was no real set time. And that was it. And if you ordered Papa John's pizza, you'd have to get in your car and you would have to drive 15 miles
Yep.
to a four-way stop sign out in the middle of nowhere, and they would meet you there. That was the designated meeting place for the pizza delivery. And you'd go, and there'd be like 4 cars sitting there waiting for the Papa John's guy to come and deliver their pizza at the 4-way stop out in the middle of nowhere, because they were like, we're not driving it all the way to you and then having to drive all the way back. We're not doing it. And like the riverboat wanted to go and build like in what would have been their city limits. And they were like, absolutely not. We do not want this. Keep that away from us. We are God-fearing people. Stay away.
Wow.
So the Caesars riverboat went and built right outside of the city limits. They went to the border, and the next town was like, we'll gladly take your money. And that high school, they rebuilt the high school. They built the high school a gymnasium for high school basketball that seats like 3,000 people, state of the art.
Yep.
Nobody in the town pays property taxes because of the money that was being brought in by the riverboat. And then her town, you got to drive 15 miles to go meet the pizza guy because you're so far away from anything. If you wanted something that in like Olytic was like that,
Shocking.
except it was even farther away from anything, because at least that place. And I mean, even when we ran Bloomington, Indiana, where the Indiana Hoosiers University is at,
Middle of fucking
that's
nowhere.
out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
There's nothing out there.
I don't think people understand that Indianapolis is in the middle of fucking nowhere. You literally, you're driving, and then there's just Indy shows up, basically. You're like, what the fuck?
Right.
Another one, and you understand because you're from the area. It shocked me how that is kind of Chicago, too. Like, obviously, it's much larger, so you see it coming much longer. But, like, you're in fucking Champaign. You're driving around. You're like, okay, little bitty town. It's cool. And then you're in fucking Chicago. And you're just like, Hammond, Gary. You're like, I'm in fucking Chicago right now. What happened? And I only know that because I took a Greyhound from Arkansas to fucking Michigan because I was an idiot and went to school there and with no car. Me, what a genius. So I do know about how fucking desolate Indiana is and that whole area, man. It is like Corn City, places like
it's all
Elkhart.
corn, windmills.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
It's nothing, and you'd see nothing. You'll just drive. There's nothing.
No,
absolutely nothing. And there's so many and we ran all those damn towns, all of
Quad City heroes, man.
And then if the other one, and I was only there for a few shows, but the Bellevue, Illinois place that he was running right at the end of 2009 when I left, and then I guess he ran some more when he started back up in that place. That was a shithole of a place out in the middle of, in the outskirts of Peoria, Illinois. That was another just absolute horror story of a place. you'd get there and you'd be like, I think 14 people were probably buried under the parking lot here. That
But I'm not going to ask.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask and I'm not going to
Hell no.
investigate, but it wouldn't have shocked me.
This is going to be a very deep cut, but I had to know what in the hell led to this. And I watched the match before we started here. I'm looking through Cage Match. I'm like, let's look at some weird shit Jim's done. There can't be anything odder, only just because of the setting and the match you had. But in August 5th of 2000, in a fucking parking lot is what it looked like. I don't know where this is. You'll know. At Hardcore Hell and Back, you and Dave Prazak had a fucking classic. And it's going to be part of the thumbnail because I isolated a tremendous moment where you do a great powder spot in the rain and the results are just phenomenal. What the hell led you guys to this moment?
Well, it's a great story. That is behind the building of the Blue Barn in Charlestown.
Okay, I didn't know if it was the Blue Barn because I keep listening to the show about the legendary Blue Barn.
Yes, it is the legendary Blue Barn, talked about by CM Punk in the infamous podcast appearance with Colt Cabana that destroyed their friendship, where he talked about the big blue barn with the community piss bucket. That was J.C. Bailey's dad had called and got the fire marshal and everybody else in the city commission and building and zoning and everything else to try to come out and shut us down. And the fire marshal looked around and it was a blue barn. It was a blue barn that a guy used as he repaired semi trucks in there.
Okay.
And then he retired and didn't want to do it anymore. And so he rented the place out and we took it on and rented it from him. So it was a business, a mechanic business. Okay. He had the barn doors that you could just swing wide open and it would be large enough of an opening that you could drive a semi truck into this building for him to work on. Okay. So the fire marshal comes in and he's like, you've only got 2 doors. We're like, we've got 2 huge barn doors too. And he's like, those don't count. We're like, what do you mean those don't count? And he's like, there's no exit sign above it. There's no push bar to get out. And we're like, when we're doing the show, unless it's wintertime, the barn doors are open so air can get in. And he's like, that doesn't count. If there's a fire, no one's going to be able to get out. Wow. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you got to have a door with a push bar on it that you can just push and get out. And it's got to be marked with an exit sign above it. And there's got to be like 4 of them, like 1 in each corner. And you might even have to add another one here or here, depending on how many people you want to try to get in here. And that's the only kind of exit that you can have. And I'm like, so you're meaning to tell me that if we had barn doors open that a fucking semi truck can drive through, that more people can get out of a door going single file and using a little push bar and going, oh, it says exit. This is how I'm going to get out if there's a fire. I'm not going to go to the big gaping fucking hole in the building.
Not on fire.
That 100 people can run out of at the same time. I'm not going to go for that because it doesn't say exit over it. And I looked at him and I was like, if they're that stupid, they're not going to be able to read the exit sign above the exit door that you want. And he's like, well, the law is the law, and that's how you got to have it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So we had to like try to raise money to get all these other doors put in. and all this other stuff that he was wanting as a requirement. So we couldn't run inside the building, so we had to run in back of the building.
Yep.
At that point. And how did it get to be me and Dave Prazak? That's a simple one. Ian had said that he was going to have like 9 big matches on the show. And something happened where one of the matches he couldn't get. So we were running like Wednesday, Saturday. So he realized on the Wednesday, I don't have the 9th match or whatever it was, count however many matches there are on that show in question.
Yeah.
He had promised that many amount of matches, but he did not have that many matches. So without asking me, without asking Dave, he just announced on the Wednesday to the crowd in front of the people, Jim Fannin's wrestling Dave Prazak on Saturday at the show. And I've never trained, never had any intentions of having a match. I had, this is 2000, so I'd been on shows for over 2.5 years at this point.
Yeah.
Never had a match. Very rarely even took a bump on any of the shows. And then he's like, "You're going to do a match." And it's like, okay. So then Saturday comes and he just looks at me and Dave and he's like, "Jim's bigger. He's going to win. Figure it out."
Nice.
We're like, "What?" Okay. So then we're out there, like we're trying to come up with stuff, and Prazak's like, "Do you even know anything?" Because I mean, at least Dave would like get in there and do work with the guys. He would train a little bit.
Yeah.
And so he's asking me, he's like, "Do you have any clue what you're doing?" And I'm like, "Not even the first clue." So as his music is starting, he's showing me inside the barn how to lock up the right way so that we could at least do a lockup to start the match, like how every match. And he's like, you don't know how to do. I was like, I mean, I've seen it enough times. I think I could do it, but I mean, I don't know the juxtapositioning of everything and exactly how firm is this supposed to be or whatever. And so he's like showing me how to lock up best with him. And we're like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to walk around. And, he didn't want to get beat with the weapon. So I'm like, well, hit me with this, hit me with that. That skinny light tube he hit me with hurt like a bitch. Those skinny light tubes are so much worse than the big ones because you got to swing it so much harder to actually break it. And it just hurt like hell. And the spot that almost everybody remembers that was there, and it was like the famous spot for the boys just loved it. And they would look at us and they would just say, "Shoot DDT," because we had a spot planned and I can't remember exactly what it was supposed to be, but it's raining.
Yes.
And we're in tennis shoes and it's raining and there's duct tape all over the canvas because of all the holes ripped in it by the barbed wire and the glass and the tacks. So you got wet duct tape. We're in tennis shoes and like Dave whips me into the ropes and I slip, tried to do so. And so I just slip and I stop in front of him and he just grabs me and DDTs me. and the boys just popped like hell for it. They were like, "Oh, that was so great. Shoot DDT, shoot DDT." And that was like the move for about a year. They would talk about the shoot DDT and everybody's like, "Oh, that match was so much better than it had any right to be," because we found a way to try to make it at least a little entertaining. But for the first wrestling match to be out there in those outside in rainy conditions.
Oh
And
God,
it had just started raining right before we went to the ring.
it
It
rained
was
quick then,
just
man.
it was just impeccable timing on it, and absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, the match happened because people were promised a certain amount of, and if Ian Rotten's known for anything, it's for keeping his word. Oh,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we absolutely have to deliver that many matches on the card, because the people would not know what to do should there have been one less match than what they were told in passing one night while he was on the microphone. So whatever, it was what it was, but it was fun. I'm glad we got to do it, and
It's
yeah,
tremendous.
Dave was teaching me how to lock up literally as his music's playing before going to the ring, so we could at least try to have one thing that was professional looking about it.
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was all the fixings of just like a manager match. You know, it was phenomenal. And like I said, it had all the bells and whistles. You know, you need that stuff, man. And that is obviously on your YouTube channel, so anyone can go watch that and enjoy. It's like 3 minutes, so it's tremendous. 3 minutes to spend. My last question for you, Jim, and this is kind of a doozy, and I can only imagine it's going to be tough to even really narrow down. But if there's one thing, if somebody was like, all right, what would you say? Maybe it's a moment, a run, an angle that you feel defines your IWA Mid South career, life?
Wow. Um, for me, what would define it?
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, there's for me, if anybody remembers anything that I do, they're probably going to remember me and Jimmy.
Sure.
And that probably, I'm guessing that that would probably be my answer, just because it's the one that people are going to remember. So it was obviously important to some people, and I think that it encompassed, it was one of the closest moments to where, like, some of the, I always tried, especially when I was a heel, I did not want to have any redeeming qualities in my character, because a heel should not, you know. And so I didn't want people cheering me. I didn't want to have those, but that angle, there was the angle with Mickey where I allowed myself to have human emotions and feel love,
Yeah.
and you know, go for that. So for me personally, that's my favorite angle, was what I was doing with Mickey. But like, nobody really remembers that, which is a shame,
Yeah, because it's
if you ask me.
tremendous stuff. Like it's so good.
Um, because I thought that, like I say, that was like the first time that I really had human emotions that a normal human should have,
Yeah.
you know, with love and rejection and fear and just all of that that encompassed it. And it made me where people could finally, like, find something that they could relate to, that wasn't just such an overbearing asshole that hopefully nobody could, you know, connect with. um but after, and I had to shut that down. I'm like, I don't want any of these people to start cheering me. They should not be wanting to see this. So I, like, shut that down. And then shortly after that, then the stuff with Jimmy happened. So there was a little bit of, maybe still a little bit of the Mickey stuff was lingering with some of the people, and to where they were able to like see that aspect of me and be like, okay, well, he is an actual human being, and he does actually have emotions like a normal person. Since that was like fresh in their mind, maybe that was still with them there. But then we added on to it then with the stuff that happened with Jimmy, and I was the loyalty guy. I was the, what you did not only tarnished that belt. And for some people, the belt's it's just an object, and like Jimmy called it in the episode with me that's on the podcast now, we call it a prop. It's just a prop, doesn't really mean anything, but I gave it meaning, and it was like that belt symbolizes Bull Payne, Mitch Page, Rolling Hard, and
Yeah.
the guys that bled, and the guys that gave everything they had. It used to mean something to them, and
Yeah.
and people could understand that, and they had those same emotions, and it brought everybody's nostalgic for what they, everything was always better in the past.
Right.
Almost everybody, it's when I was a kid, that was when it was best, and I was like putting that into that belt symbolized everything that came before it, and it was going to symbolize everything that came after it. It was like the most important thing. It was the symbol, and you betrayed that, you harmed that, and people. So there was actually, and I think Nick Manoa did a great job of describing it on that podcast. When I cut that first promo in Streamwood, I just went back and rewatched that because he found the clip and he sent it to me, and I put it up on the YouTube channel. That there was a strong amount of the crowd that was on my side.
Yeah.
And of course, by the end, through the steps that I would take in the treacherous acts that I would take, they ended up being fully on Jimmy's side, especially after he came back and had been gone. And they were like, well, he served his time. He did his penance. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I need more. I need to take your soul. I need to make sure that you feel this. And I took it too far. And so I think like that whole angle, I think that did, and that encapsulated the character that I was trying to portray. And we were able to get the people, granted, not a lot. There wasn't a lot of people there,
Yeah.
but the people that were there were invested.
Oh yeah.
They chose a side. And then when I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I'm a heel. I then was able to find the way. Probably Jimmy would have preferred me to find other ways to have gotten to
Right.
it to that point. But I was then able to, like, even the people that were the most ardent IWA supporters and loyal fans, able to get even them to go, you've taken this too far. We're taught that we should forgive, and I was incapable. That was not an emotion and a feeling that I was capable of having for anything, let alone something like what Jimmy Jacobs had done. So that's probably, if you're asking what angle best, was showed what I was, or at least what I tried to portray, it has to be that one, just because it's it's the one thing that the people remember. And, hopefully with my comeback, I can make them remember some other things.
Yeah.
The mind's going to remember the stuff that's, you know, most recent. They may not like it as much as that, because I had already said, the nostalgia is what's going to win out when people are picking their favorite memories. But maybe I can give them some new memories with this comeback. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think I'm going to be defined by that Jimmy Jacobs angle, and sadly, it didn't get to come to a natural conclusion.
Right.
And people would probably say it should. I mean, it was 4 years long. It definitely had it had enough time to have come to
Right.
a natural conclusion, but it just didn't, and that's a shame. But that's probably the angle that is going to be it's going to follow me forever.
I mean, I remember it vividly, so you're definitely onto it. And as you mentioned, you are back. You're back in the biz. And where can everyone find you over there on Twitter? That's where I correspond with you. So I don't know what all social medias you got, but I know you're pretty active on there.
So social media wise, it's Twitter and Instagram is J Fannin 73. You can see my last name up on the screen here. There's no G at the end of it. God damn it. I am not
No.
related to the actresses. There's no G, so leave the G off. But J for James or Jim, whatever you want, J Fannin 73, and that's both Twitter and Instagram. And that's where I post the most.
And you got
So you
some
can follow me.
bookings as well coming up. First
Yeah,
bookings in a minute.
right now there's two bookings. The first booking is for Black Label Pro, and that's at the Squared Circle Expo convention that's coming up at the end of March, Friday night, March the 27th in Indianapolis for them. I actually get to manage Mickey Knuckles
So
and
cool.
have her join the family after all these years. Finally get to knock that one off. And I don't know if we're gonna, like, I haven't really talked with the guy as to exactly if we're even gonna if it's just gonna be a match, if there's gonna be anything to it. But a fun little backstory of it is when we did the wooing of Mickey Knuckles angle in IWA Mid South in 2005. It was to try to get her to turn on Ian Rotten leading to War Games.
Okay. Yeah.
And, so I wanted people to be skeptical of my romantic interludes with her,
Yeah.
that it was just a ploy to get her to turn on Ian, to hurt Ian, because I had gotten Axel to turn on him. I'd gotten his childhood best friend, Mark Wolf, to turn on him. I had gotten, his tag team partner at the time, Steve Stone, to turn on him. And so, I got all these people to turn on him and to hurt him. So then, like, the next pillar to fall would have been his trainee, and who he claimed was like a daughter to him, and all this other stuff, like, get her to flip.
Yeah.
And he didn't want Mickey to be a heel. He did not want to do it. So he forced me to, he's like, it's gonna be JC's gonna be the trainee that you get to turn on me. And I wasn't happy with that, but it was his company, it was his show. He was gonna do what he wanted on it. And so I didn't really have much choice there. So, but when I started doing the wooing and trying to get her to turn and whatever, the the first time it started on a couple of those small podunk Indiana towns that
Yeah.
nobody watched. But the first time it happened in Highland, I like bring her flowers, I bring her candy, I do the Carlton dance from Fresh Prince of Bel Air, and
Yes. Classic.
and some and somebody from the crowd brought me a T-shirt to wear that said Mickey for the gold because he was a huge Mickey Knuckles fan.
Yeah.
Well, that's the guy running Black Label Pro.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So when I like reached out to him and I was like, I want to come back, I want to manage Mickey, it would be a full circle moment if the man who gave me the Mickey for the Gold t-shirt and tried to help me get it that very first night in
Yeah.
Highland when I officially asked her for the first time to join me. It'd be a great little full circle moment if that's the guy that then runs the show that actually the two of us are a team on. And he loved it. And he was like, let's see if we can pull this off. And, you know, thankfully Mickey was okay with doing it and wanted to be involved. So I don't know if we're going to get into like any part of that but I wanted to, it is a cool little full circle moment there
That's amazing.
of how that gets pulled off. But, you know, I don't know how active he is being involved on the show, if he just stays in the background or whatever. So he might be mad that I just said all that, but I just thought it was too cool of a little story to
That's
not
awesome.
be able to say something on. So, and then the very next night, I then still in Indianapolis, but not involved with the Squared Circle Expo. Something going on separate from that is Wrestle Arts, and you know they reached out to me and said they were interested in having the Fannin family there. Mickey's booked elsewhere that night, so there will be a different new member of the Fannin family that will be revealed at the Wrestle Arts show. So I will have at
And
least
growing.
two people that are Fannin family after March the 28th, and then we'll see if we can get any more shows and more folks involved. I've been pretty active on social media with who I'm trying to recruit and get to do things with. Is you know I want to be able to work with my friends. You know, I know
Yeah.
a couple people were reaching out to me going, you know, you're really going to limit your bookings if you're telling people, well, here are the approved people that. But I'm like, you know, I want to work with the people that, you know, I'm coming back to do this to have fun, and you know, so I want to be with my friends while I can because we're all getting older,
Right.
and a manager has a longer life expectancy than, you know, the Mickey Knuckles and the John Wayne Murdochs and the Reed Bentleys and the folks that are going out there and doing death matches. They're called death matches, ladies.
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
reason that they're called death matches, and
There's only
anytime out
one
there
tank,
to be
right?
the last time. And you hate to look at it like that, but you know, who knows how much longer these guys. So I want to make sure that I get them, and then after I get the bucket list items knocked off that I want to accomplish, then you know we can consider the newer generation, if you will. But you know, it's I want to have fun. I want to see what see if I still got it. You know, and maybe I do, maybe I don't. Some folks would say I never had it to begin with. So
Yeah.
be interesting to see how it plays out. But if it's only these two shows, at least I finally get to manage Mickey Knuckles, and you know I get the number one item on the bucket list to be crossed off on night one. So anything after that's just gravy.
And that's what it's all about. I got a feeling that you're gonna do more than two, though. I think we're hitting a stride. You know, my generation. I'm 37 this month. Uh, you know, we're kind of hitting into that sort of lane of our nostalgia, and you know, people like me, the psychopaths that were like, hey, I don't really want to watch WWE or any of that, and you know, I watched TNA, but it was like on Fox Sports Net. You know what I mean? It's a whole different animal. So, you know, for people like myself, you know, IWA Mid South, CZW, um, that's our nostalgia. You know, that's what kind of makes us feel good, and what I remember vividly and well about being a fan back then. Like you said, it's kind of a dark time. It's like the WWE just kind of ran everything. So I have a feeling, and Jim Fannin, it's one of those things like the Fannin family. It's evergreen. You know, you were very smart, and you didn't date yourself with it, right? Like it's an evergreen thing. And yeah, man, I'm excited to see you jump back in, man, because I think there is definitely, I'm with tripping balls, man. I think there is absolutely a spot for Jim Fannin in the wrestling world in 2026 onward.
Well, I appreciate that. I always tell people I was probably about 10 years too late. As I started getting involved on the shows late 97.
All right.
If that was 87,
Yeah.
you know, every heel had a manager
Mm-hmm.
on TV, but then Vince killed all the competition and then decided I can make billions instead of millions if I get rid of having to pay certain, so
Yep.
we lost tag team wrestling that I grew up, instead of dedicated tag teams, it became, well, here's two singles guys that, aren't gaining steam on singles, so we'll just throw them together, and
Yeah.
you you lose the Rock and Roll Express, you lose the Midnight Express, you lose the Road Warriors, you lose the Steiner brothers, you lose that stuff, and you lost all the managers.
Yep.
And so, I think I would have been able to at least have had a good run in a territory if
Absolutely.
if I was 10 years before, but I came at the wrong time. And maybe now there's an opportunity that, now that it's more of a novel concept, maybe there's an opening for let's have some more managers.
Yeah.
Let's have some more little schmucks out there just pissing you off and
I love it.
interfering and being a little Bull Payne tried so hard to get people to call me a weasel
Yeah.
leading up to our match at the 2003 King of the Death matches. He tried so hard, and
It's just they didn't do it.
people, that was like one of the the independent fans of the 2000. They weren't bringing signs
No.
to the shows. They weren't getting into the chants, and they were all, we'll sit there and be a critique.
Yeah, I hate that, man. I try to be the complete opposite of that. Like, I review stuff, and I guess I do critique things, and I do reviews and everything, but, like, I try to be, you know, I review what it is, you know. I'm not going to try to sit here and preach. I think, you know, we're all sick of that on every level at this point. But, I mean, geez, Jim, you gave me over an hour and a half of your time. I really appreciate it. I hope that it was, you know, a fun little walk down memory lane. And yeah, I hope everyone goes and checks you out at your two shows that you have booked. And like I said, I got a feeling you're going to have more bookings going forward. Let's make this a thing.
I like the way you think. Let's make it. You heard it. You heard him. Let's make it a thing.
Let's make it a thing. All right, man. Well, thank you. And yeah, for everyone listening, until next time, we'll see you down the road.